that's picking up on the live feed too. All right, so we're back. Let's try this one more time. Hopefully audio is working for everybody else and not just myself. So for those who missed out, this is our first episode of Don't Cross the Streams. I've got Jay here, who runs the Comic-Con with me. Joining us, we've got Alex Chamberlain, we've got Limitless Wrestling owner Randy Carver, and creator of Headlock Comics, Michael Kingston.
How you doing?
Welcome, guys.
Yo.
Thanks for having us.
Let's start by seeing if people can hear us.
Right?
Yeah.
Let's start there.
Seems like a valid way to open the show.
Somebody comment.
Yeah, I see the couple. Look. Oh, it's working. Yeah, I can
It's
hear.
working. All right.
Cool.
We got it now? All right.
Perfect. All right, so as me and Jay were kind of saying before, our whole plan with Don't Cross the Streams web series is to do something to help provide a distraction with everything going on, help get everybody's mind off of everything, and be able to connect and see each other through a few times a week. So we're going to be having current and past BCTC guests, artists, vendors, local businesses. Just try to do something fun. So tonight's episode is going to be all about wrestling, obviously. So, Jay, you want to kick off, add anything in?
I just want to say welcome, everybody. I'm super happy to have you guys here. As apparently everybody can hear us, so that makes me feel good. Mike, thank you for taking time out of your day to join us during this webisode.
Thanks for having me on, man.
Like Will said, we just want to have a good time. Let's shoot the crap.
Yeah.
Happy to help, jerk the curtain on this thing.
Yeah. Are we swearing? Are we going to swear during this? Because I'm ready.
I'd say now this is the time to let people know there may be crude language. So, kind of like Brian O'Halloran says, like, if you're in here, you understand what's happening.
You know what you're getting into.
Yeah, you know what you're getting into. If you don't want to hear any swears, this is probably the time to hop off. Obviously, on every episode, we'll have it, but, we're here to have fun, have a good time. So as Jay kind of said prior, where people couldn't hear it, this weekend would have been the con. So right now we'd actually be hanging out with Al. Al would have flown up today. I think Mike would have been here tomorrow. Got a message from Jason Fawn himself too, saying, "Hey, it's kind of crazy. I should be on a flight tomorrow morning heading to see you guys." So it sucks. We had put a lot into this, as many other conventions have. Randy himself setting up different wrestling events. Alex traveling all over. Mike, a ton of cons that he's had to, kind of had to put on the back burner and change his schedule around. And it's been an adventure for everybody, but.
Yeah, Randy.
Today would be the day I would be.
Oh, sorry. Go, Mike. Sorry.
Today would have been the day I would have been frantically trying to shove things into my luggage and chugging a bunch of antacid, because I'm like, there's no way I'm going to get this stuff all packed up in time for my flight. So it's a little slips into the process.
Yeah.
Did you get that Monster sponsorship yet, Mike?
I should. I don't know why I haven't yet, but I
thought that's what you were going to say, that you were chugging was Monster, because I noticed that's one thing you were saying you were looking for your Monster sponsorship.
Yeah, well, that's it's part of my healthcare plan. Like, generally, if I feel myself getting sick, I drop an Airborne in one and throw that down, and so it's a very versatile drink.
Right. I watched some weird science experiments with Monster that made me. It was something like they poured it in with some mixed eggs, and it turned the eggs like immediately rubbery or something. Like there was some weird chemical compound with it.
I mean, if it turns me into Mr. Fantastic, I'm all for that. So bring it on,
Mr. Pitt.
So we've got Gregory's joining in, Justin from Orno Brewing Company, Ben, TJ Wallace says, "How's it going, guys?"
George says he doesn't think we're wearing pants.
All right, let's see this bet. So George has got 5 minutes sitting there, and I bet $100 no one's wearing pants. Ben is also not wearing pants. I'll throw it out there. I'm wearing shorts, so you're right. At least I'm not wearing pants. I don't know about anybody else, though.
I am actually wearing pants for once in my life.
I am too.
Oh,
I'm not.
I'm just gonna leave it to your imagination.
Oh, George, it looks like you lost $100, man. I'm sorry. Oh man. All right, so let's kind of kick some things off here with Randy. So Randy, you've been doing how many years with Limitless Wrestling?
Just about 4.5 years. We were founded in September of 2015.
And I mean, Limitless has done a ton of things. I mean, you've just kind of seen you from the start. I mean, even the very first con we did, you were actually announcing for another company, and to be able to see what you've been able to build here in the state, it's just been amazing. What's been your favorite thing so far, or your proudest moment with Limitless and the fan base you've been able to build here?
Honestly, it's just kind of rebuilding a wrestling community in the area. That kind of means a lot to me as being someone who has attended shows in Maine since I was like 9 or 10 years old. There really wasn't much going on at the time. 2015, there was kind of a depleted scene and not a lot of wrestlers, even in the area taking part or hosting shows. So we really just wanted to try to do something different and got enough people kind of on the same wavelength to put things in motion with us. A lot of local guys like Alexander Lee, Ace Romero, Danger Kid, Aiden Agro, just good dudes who are the right guys to have on the team from the start. And it's been just really cool kind of building things up and seeing what kind of fan base we've been able to create.
Yeah, me and Jay have been able to come out to a few of the events, see pictures all the time. I mean, sold out almost every show, right? It's crazy.
Yeah, we've been super lucky. I mean, ever since we took a jump from the central Maine, like Orono area running shows to the Westbrook, Portland area, and just kind of put it all on the line and had to really, take a step to try to grow. And we've been really lucky, with some really big sellouts for the area, 400, 500, 600 people. We were able to run the Portland Expo last year, which was huge. Just really cool shit that, wasn't really imaginable a little while ago, but we've had, some of the best professional wrestlers in the area come through and really put in a lot of time and effort into building this.
Yeah, absolutely. And it shows for sure. Like what you were kind of saying where the scene kind of goes in and out. It was kind of like the same with the music scene. It's like you have like a group that does their thing. They're all doing it, whatever. And it kind of just goes down. And then all of a sudden people kind of bring it back up. And that's how I feel like with Al and I, we come back from we're back from when you used to have had to have a license in Maine to be a wrestler.
Oh, I left. I mean, that's the reason I left. I left the state because I left in 2008 because there was nothing left. I mean, there was no shows, so I was literally getting in a bus every day. I was in college full time, working full time, and every weekend I'd jump on a bus to go down to Bob Evans's school to train because there was no place to train in Maine. There was no place to work. There was like maybe a shit show at a parking lot once every other month. And then you'd have like the buy every 6 months. You'd have a show at Dino's or something like that. But
yes,
I literally had to leave. I had to leave because I was like, there's nothing to do. I'm not going to learn anything. And I can't keep, driving 5.5 hours just to get out of the state. It's 3 hours just to get out of the state. And
you're
then
probably
another 2.5 hours to go anywhere you want to work.
Time too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. And that's kind of the same thing with Maine. Like really, I mean, Mike isn't from this area or whatnot, but it's like that was the hardest part about Maine, or still is that like to do anything, it takes about 3 hours to get out and then find a place that you can actually do something in.
I mean, I go through that in upstate New York. I mean, I live in Albany, and there's not a heavy scene in Albany. Even most of central New York, I mean, there used to be when 2CW ran, but since they closed, I mean, it's been pretty chill. So, I mean, generally, I got to go to New York, Philly, whatever. But, I mean, it's usually a minimum 2.5 hours for me to get anywhere that's gonna draw, generally up to 4.5, 5 I'll drive, depending on the show.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, upstate New York is actually very similar to Maine, like the scenery and everything and kind of where you guys are. Do a lot of people compare you to Canada? Because that's one thing we get a lot.
All the time.
It depends, because to people who don't live here, like New York is New York City.
Yeah.
So, like, a lot of people don't even understand the concept of upstate New York. And then,
right.
if you live in New York, you kind of know the more north you go, the more south it gets. So, it's
That's like Florida. Florida's
right,
like that.
right.
Miami's
Florida's
like
another,
that.
yeah.
The more
Florida's
north you go,
another
the more
state
north
like
you
that.
go, the more south you get.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the rednecks. The more north you go, you get closer to Georgia.
Yeah, no, that's true for sure.
So, back to the Al was talking about the whole license, needing a license to wrestle and whatnot. You got Ben on here commenting. He said he used to have to get a license just to be able to ref as well, which is crazy to think about.
It was a shake. I mean, it was a total shakedown. The whole licensing thing.
It was just for money. It was like all for money.
Yeah.
Because you want the contest to be contested legitimately. You want your referees to have a license.
I can't remember that old man's name. It was like his name was like Fred or Al or something. I'm sure Ben. Huh?
Al Biondi.
Al Biondi. Yeah, it was.
Biondi.
Forgot about that guy.
What did you have to do? What did you have to do to get a wrestling license?
Oh, nothing. It's like
you just had to pay a fee, right?
You literally just pay. It's like any other state. Like the only state I've ever had, the only state I wrestle in where I actually have to do something is Louisiana. Louisiana, you got to pass. You got to do a blood test. You got to pass a physical there. Like they have to have an EMT in the building. Every other state, I have licenses in Kentucky, Virginia, all these places. They literally, you just pay your money and they don't even show up. Like half the time the inspector's not even there. But Louisiana is the only state that actually like shows up, and they won't let you. They won't let you.
They showed up in Mania.
Huh?
They showed up in Mania.
Luke Hawks is the one that handed out all of the licenses for WrestleMania.
They came to collect taxes at my table, like literally.
They're there. No, Louisiana's aggressive.
Like, yo, where's your sales tax?
Yep, and they get their 20%. Whatever.
Side note, I just want to address something. Ben Doucette keeps saying that he can't hear anything. Is that everybody else says they can hear it?
I can hear you through the phone too.
I had someone text me and said they could hear it now once we started again.
Yeah, everybody else.
I hear. I'm literally listening right now on the live on my phone.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right. Well,
George Treadwell is saying, this is dope. Just kicking back with my wireless beats on. That's
great.
Has got this going. Oh, Greg, yep.
Yeah.
There's no way Alex Chamberlain was not going to wear a tank top. So I feel like
Florida.
everyone
it's too hot out. Florida.
Pretty well. And
he's in Florida, man. I mean, like, we're not in Florida right now.
And I got to assume at some point Ben must have had audio because he was able to hear the licensing piece that Al was talking about. So maybe it's cutting out for him or something. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm still hearing Jay and everything. Yeah. So I'm listening through my phone just to make sure we still got a good thing going.
So, I guess I'm kind of just curious, like what everybody's, keeping themselves busy with. Like Randy, did you guys just do some kind of documentary? Am I speaking wrong? Did you guys do some kind of video with the dojo and all that?
We did a piece with like Fox ABC a month ago, but we have a series going on right now on Independent Wrestling TV that's like basically releasing a bunch of matches that we taped and had in the can before everything went to shit.
Yeah.
We had like a couple dojo tapings and then a couple Let's Wrestle shows that hadn't yet been released. So we're kind of doing like a weekly release every Tuesday, streaming it live on there. And then we do like Thursday releases on the Facebook page.
Awesome.
But that's pretty much all we're doing right now. I mean, there's not really much else you can do. So I'm kind of going through like the early Limitless shows right now and putting some stuff out.
Yeah. No, I totally get it. That's why I was just kind of curious. I mean, like, I'm super stir crazy. Like, I realize that my profession doing tattoos is like a niche kind of thing. So it's like I'm in my own world right now where I just got booted basically. So I just didn't know if any of you guys like Al, Mike, are you guys able to, you said, Mike, you're still working. You still got, because I noticed that in your, the interviews that I saw is like you do all this crazy stuff with Headlock and everything, but you still just work regular jobs, right?
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, it kind of helps me out with something like this. I mean, it keeps my mortgage paid and whatnot. So, obviously the business is always kind of a fluctuating, and I can't do shows in the middle of the week. So I might as well, make some money, and it allows me to take risks and, maybe do some shows that I wouldn't necessarily do, or, some of the bigger shows, like, they're expensive, San Diego, New York, or whatever. And we have the only wrestling booth at those shows. So, but those booths are not cheap. So, and, I'll make my money back at the show, but it's a matter of being liquid enough to be like, hey, I'm going to part with $6,000 for a little while. and knowing I'm going to get it back in 6 months. So like that's so that's why I've always had the job. So my life isn't appreciably different. I work and then I write. I mean, I'm not on the road at shows, but I mean, I'm still writing. I just finished a script. I'm working on it hasn't really been announced yet, but we're all friends, but I'm writing a tie-in. There's a cage fighter movie with John Moxley that he's in. I'm writing a prequel, a comic book prequel for that. So I just turned in the third script for that. I'm still making some comics for Pro Wrestling Crate where I collaborate with different wrestlers.
Did you use the movie theater scene?
Yeah.
The one we talked about in Richmond.
No,
Remember?
I didn't. But I did. I just finished a comic. I collaborated with Sergeant Slaughter on about basically a patriotic babyface and a foreign heel on a car breaks down and they have to get across to the next town, keeping kayfabe. So it's kind of like a road comedy. It's a lot of fun, but so I'm working on some of that stuff, and I'm working on putting together some projects with some of the guys that were just recently released. So I stay busy. I've always got more work than I can handle. So, normally I was just trying to put like 8 pounds of shit in a 10-pound bag instead of 10.
I bet you thrive off it though. Like I'm a deadline guy. Like I need to have a deadline. Do not tell me whenever, because it'll never get done. Tell me.
I'm not necessarily that bad, but I mean, I've lived the last 10 years with like a giant tidal wave like right behind me. So me just running for my life. So.
But you thrive off that though. I bet if like you didn't have it, you wouldn't even know what to do with yourself.
It's tricky. I mean, I'm either like 1,000 miles an hour or 0 miles an hour. So, I mean, I'd either be, I'm either running, freaking out, or just, I'm a melted block of Velveeta on the couch,
Velveeta sounds really good right now, actually.
It does.
So, Mike, why don't you tell us a little bit about Headlock Comics? How did that all get started? Like, what was your inspiration for doing that?
I've loved wrestling and comics my whole life. And it's just at some point, like, nobody ever made any good wrestling comics. Like, I would buy the wrestling comics that would come out, and they were generally just awful. At best, you might get one that's so bad that it's good, like, Ultimate Warrior stripping Santa Claus naked and stealing his suit and chaining him to a fireplace. You might get something like that. But, I mean, there was nothing that was, like, good. And so... I mean, I took the concept of Headlocked everywhere, and comics is very superhero centric, and it's a straight drama, and it wasn't necessarily something that comic publishers were interested in. So I just made it myself. I started selling it on my backpack at Ring of Honor shows. I worked 2 jobs for almost a year to pay for the first print run, to pay for art, to pay for some convention tables, and then I started doing it, and then I was lucky enough that a lot of wrestlers who liked comics liked what I was doing, like Hurricane, Rob Van Dam, Christopher Daniels, and then Jerry Lawler and whatnot. So I was able to, get those guys to help contribute, and then it's just sort of spiraled into this thing. And now, like I said, we got the only wrestling booth at a lot of the biggest Comic Cons, and I try to, fly the flag there for wrestling, because none of the wrestling companies generally will send, have a booth or whatever. They don't see the value in it. But I like to have a place. I feel like Comic-Cons are like the church in Highlander, you know what I mean? Like all your fandom should be able to be represented, and we can all be good, and absolutely, in that space. But there was nobody really doing it for wrestling, So I try to be that at shows when I can be there, and I just try to make cool content. We made fun comics. I mean, I'm happy with Headlocked. I've got to go around the country. I didn't go anywhere for most of my life. I mean, I live 2.5 hours from New York City, and I didn't go to New York City till I was 31 years old. Ironically for Samoa Joe versus Kenta Kobashi, was what got me to go to New York City for the first time.
Good reason
now
to go.
I've been all over the country, and I've got to meet so many people and make so many friends, and I've got to make cool stuff, and I've got to have people who I respect creatively tell me that they respect me creatively, and that's kind of kind of the best feeling in the world.
Yeah, and then as you kind of said, like you listed off a pretty impressive list of some people you've got to work with. Others include you've got Booker T. You said RVD, AJ Styles, Ric Flair, Mick Foley, the Young Bucks. Crazy, and that's just not even scratching the surface with some of the people you've got to work with. Kenny Omega. Who's been one of your favorites to be able to collaborate with?
It's a tough one.
I know you
probably
talk about that Steiner piece that you did.
What's that?
You talked a lot about that Steiner piece that you did.
Oh, that was a lot of fun. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. But I'd probably Helms. I mean, he's a good friend of mine. Just from this, I mean, we become good friends, and we just he loves comics, I love comics, whatever, and he's a fun guy to collaborate with. Just very like-minded, and we can fling around a lot of dumb ideas and whatnot. So he's a fun one, and I don't know. I mean, honestly, there really hasn't been a bad experience collaboratively. I mean, they're all artists and storytellers, even, you know what I mean? Even for people, some of them might not even realize it, I mean, I think everybody does now, but you know what I mean? Like, it's just, so you're getting to sit down with a storyteller and tell stories. And, sometimes it's just like being in the car on the road to the next town or something, I mean, like Jerry and I have driven between, towns on an indie show, just talking about old Memphis stuff and, slinging around ideas and stuff. And it's super, super fun, for a guy who grew up a lifelong wrestling fan who just wanted to make a cool wrestling comic to be like, I sat down with Ric Flair and we came up with a story for my comic book is the kind of thing that you never think would ever happen in a million years.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Well, it's funny, like, how that works, because that kind of segues into the, like, with Al. Like, Al and I grew up together, watching wrestling, playing SmackDown on PlayStation 1 and seeing when the second SmackDown was coming out and being like, oh my God, the graphics. And like, next thing I know, Al's wrestling Gangrel and his like bros with him. And then he's getting the mandible claw from Mankind. I'm just like, it blows my mind to think that you guys are like, going from being a fan to like straight up working with these people.
Yeah, it's definitely weird when your heroes become your peers. That's the weirdest thing I think for a lot of guys to come to terms with in wrestling is when you walk into a locker. I mean, I remember the first real name I ever met was King Kong Bundy, and you were there, Jay.
I was there. I just posted.
Yeah, that was in Swanton, Vermont, and man, I remember just being like, "Holy shit, that's King Kong Bundy."
Hold on,
and then you have to
pull that photo up.
That proper training of like hold the mark in and be a professional. And even though I was like 18 years old, whatever. But and then as it grows over time, it's like, man, you're meeting Slaughter, Flair, like through Mike, I've gotten to know Jerry Lawler pretty well, which is like something I never thought I'd be hearing. Like we were sitting there in Richmond, and Lawler's telling us old stories about like Pat O'Connor and all these guys. I'm like, you're telling us to work in Luthez. He's like grabbing my arm, like, this is how Luthez grabbed me, and I'm like, holy shit. I'm like, that's amazing. That's 80 years of wrestling history, and he's like showing me like how Les grabbed him in a hold, So
well, you had the pleasure. You trained with Snuka, right?
Yeah. Yeah, he did all my finishing school was basically through Snuka. He taught me basically the last like levels of how to work, on a larger scale. So that's why I moved down to Florida, was to finish like my training with him.
Right. Yeah, because it was Snuka and Jimmy. Who am I thinking of? Tennis racket. Why can't I think of his name?
Cornette.
Cornette, right? What, Jimmy Cornette, wasn't he also kind of
he was helping us. He was doing Ring Warriors at the time that Howard Brody, the old president of the NWA, was promoting shows, and Cornette would come down and he would work. He would if he was at the shows and stuff, he was always cool to help out people. He's actually a super nice guy. I like Jim a lot. Him and his wife are good people.
Yeah. I remember you saying that, and I think that was the first time that like being a friend of yours growing up together that you mentioned somebody that you were working with that I was just like, what?
Oh man.
What?
Oh man, my Jimmy story. Like, if you want to talk about like meeting your heroes for the first time, I tell this story because it's always hilarious. So I was just started going to Jimmy's school, and he was spending his time between Jersey and Fort Lauderdale, where he had a place down here in Fort Lauderdale, and he lives in New Jersey too with his wife. And I remember he was coming to the school for the first time that day, and I was like super nervous. Me and my buddy Frank were like waiting for him, and so we had a warehouse, and if you wanted to take a piss, you had to like walk out the back door and use like a communal restroom that was like in the back behind. And so I jumped out of the ring, rolled out, go there. And as you're walking back to the building, you can see the front of the building. It's like where all the cars park. I see this dude, it looks like an old dude, just standing there, and he's standing in front of his car. So he's facing me, and he's trying to hide himself, but I'm like looking straight at him. He whips his dick out, and he just starts taking a piss. And I was like, oh, gross. I'm like, who's this guy? I'm like, what are you doing, old man? Like, I'm like, that's nasty. I'm like, there's a bathroom right there. And I was like, all right, cool. And he had this weird bandana on, couldn't see his face. He was looking down. And so I'm like, all right, cool. Walk in the back door, walk in the front. And I'm like, oh shit, that's Jimmy. And then immediately the first thing that crosses my mind is, he just took a piss. He didn't wash his hands. I got to shake his hand now. Like, there's no way I can't like not shake his hand. I'm like, oh, this is going to be awesome. And then I said like literally like, hey man, how are you, sir? I'm like grabbing his hand. I'm like, yeah, there we go. Nice and moist.
Did you give him the little wrist tickle?
Afterwards, I'm like wiping that shit off. I'm like, oh, gross.
Right.
It's like always a funny story to me. I'm like, yeah, there we go. I'm like, that figures.
That's awesome.
So now Jay was saying earlier, talking about the mandible claw. So I heard some video on Facebook somewhere of you as Skeletor at a wedding, and you get the mandible claw from Foley comes out of nowhere. How was that experience?
That was awesome. That was actually for my two good friends, Heather and Jude. Jude McKenzie's a wrestler out of Ohio, lives down here, and Heather is a ring announcer from down here. She's a girl of many talents. She's a singer, songwriter, actress, all that. Jude's a really good wrestler, but wrestles almost as long as I have. He's a good friend of mine. They were doing a TV show called Say Yes to the Dress on TLC. And
TLC. That sounded like a TLC name.
Yeah, it is. So it's like a wedding. It's like a wedding show where like they're trying to find the perfect dress or whatever. So Mick and Heather are really good friends. So he's always around. Like I get to know Mick really well just from hanging out at conventions and just meeting him at shows. I've worked with him a lot on different shows all over the country. And so they wanted to have Skeletor, which I play for a company I help produce called Fantasy Super Cosplay Wrestling. And so they wanted Skeletor to crash the wedding, and they were going to have Mick save the day, which to me, I mean, I was like, I don't care, like, what I have to do. I'm like, my goal right now in wrestling, like, my goal is like to take every Attitude Era finish. And so far, I have like 20 of them down. I have D'Lo Sky High. I've taken the Mandible Claw. I've taken I've taken so many finishes.
And everything.
I've taken the stage dive from the Headbangers, Gangrel's DDT.
Stink face.
Not yet. No, I've been on shows. I have the best Rikishi story in the world. I've been on shows with Rikishi. I have the best Rikishi story in the world. But
I feel like that's only going to get a tougher move to take as he gets older.
Oh,
so you might want to get that one out of the way.
Yeah, just to get it done.
It'll just be crunchier. That's all.
Yeah, no. So so they wanted Skeletor to do a thing. So I was like, all right. So during the reception, I do a change out real quick in the back, and then they have me come out and do the Skeletor voice and like threaten to steal all the wedding presents. And then Mick sneaks up behind as a tap on the shoulder, and you wave it off like, don't bother me, I'm talking, asshole. And then he eventually turns me around, gives me Sacco. That was pretty cool. That was actually a super fun. It's funny because it's like a bunch of her wedding is very it was her dad's family is like these very like really well-to-do, like really rich older folk that were there, and so they have like no idea what they're watching. They understood Skeletor, but Mick, they weren't really getting it. And like the other half is all wrestlers who are all like they were super drunk. Everyone's really crappy. So everyone was like feeding off the energy. So it was actually a super little fun spot. It was a good time.
It was awesome watching that, just because that was another moment where it was so surreal. Because mixed with that, it was the same when Gangrel. I think it was with Limitless at Dino's. Did Gangrel come there a couple years ago? It may have been like
a few months ago, right?
Gangrel last year, but that was IWE because I think Curry played him in.
Oh,
right?
Yeah. That might have been who it was. Sorry, but I just remember that it was the night before Gangrel wrestled you, Al, in Vegas, and he flew from Vegas to Brewer. Yeah. So it was literally like the night before you just wrestled one of my best friends in Vegas.
Yeah.
And then he's here in Brewer.
Yeah, because you remember him telling me about it. He was like, "Oh, I'm going to be in your hometown tomorrow." I was like, "What, really?"
Yeah, Randy just had
that was a match. We got super bloody that match. That's right, because we were like,
because
we both got like super colored because we're both like
head and stuff.
Well, because I mean, we've had like 50 matches against each other, and we always try to we both go into a match. Every time we see each other match, we're like, all right, cool. At least you don't have to talk, but we're gonna beat the shit out of each other because we just like to hit each other really hard because we have that kind of friendship. So we were like, we can just go at it and not go nuts. And I'm like, we sat down. I was like, we're gonna bleed, aren't we, on this one? And he goes, "Oh, I was thinking the same thing." And I was like, "All right, cool, let's do this." It's cool. I love working with Gangrel because he's he's the most badass, legit, real dude. Like that guy is the last real war horse of wrestling. I mean, up until now, he was working more than I don't care what anybody says. He was working more on the indies than any wrestler that's on
I believe
it. So hard too. He goes so hard.
He doesn't stop, dude. I mean, I got to dominate just to put over Gangrel even more. But man, like I worked a strip club show with 4 people with him, and he's like clotheslined me, and it was like on concrete. And I'm like, I literally pushed him off. I was like, no. I'm like, there's 4 people here. There's 4 people. I'm like, no one's watching this, man.
4 people. And 3 of them are.
So I'm doing everything I can not to throw a clothesline. So I'm just like, no, fuck it. I'll just throw a punch. I threw a punch. He bumps anyways, like full on. He doesn't have like a lot of guys will pull back a gear. You know what I mean? When the energy's not there, if there's like no one there, you're not going to take a crazy risk. He doesn't care. Like he's 51 years old and he works 100% every single thing he does. Practice, digging a ditch. It doesn't matter. That guy has one gear and it's 100% go. It's really impressive. Cool. It makes me feel lazy. Like every time.
Tiger's blood.
Total sweetheart. I mean, toughest dude ever, but like the super nicest guy.
Oh, I know. Yeah. No,
just a sweetheart.
Absolutely.
You see that Randy has a cursor on his face?
Yeah, it's gone. Yeah, I saw it. It's not there anymore.
I'll say that.
I never noticed it until they said it. No,
I just noticed it was like right on the middle of your nose right here.
Like a cursor on
you had a curse like right here the whole time. Just noticed that. Gangrel's like the sweetest guy in the world. He's he'll do anything for anybody. Very very unselfish dude.
And actually, we were talking about collaborators earlier. He's somebody working on a project with.
The best story, man. I love that one.
It's about an indie promoter in the Pacific Northwest who's got a family-owned company that's going out of business, and he goes out in the woods to commit suicide, and Bigfoot stops him, and he decides to train Bigfoot to wrestle. And everybody thinks it's really a gimmick, a guy in a suit, but it's really Bigfoot. And then stardom goes to Bigfoot's head. And it's the 80s, so we get him hooked on coke, and it's gonna be super super fun. Like we've already got a company attached to it, so we're just waiting for the green light to produce it.
Did you come up with that idea?
What's that?
You came up with all that?
The Bigfoot idea is 100% Dave's idea.
That was Gangrel, yeah.
Yeah, it's a collaboration.
Really?
Some of it.
Yeah, he told me that at practice. He was telling me about it. I was like, dude, you gotta tell Kingston this. I was like, you have to tell him this idea. Like he was like, oh no, I just had this. And so they met at I can't remember, was it Raleigh or something like that? You guys started getting together and collaborating on it.
That like SuperCon retro one.
It was retro. That's right. It was Miami. Yeah. That was awesome. I was glad it actually got moving. That was the best part when I saw the art for it. I was like, dude, it's actually happening. It's a great story. It's actually a really fun story.
Yeah.
So we did like a little teaser for Headlocked, a Headlock version of it, and then some other company, that I can't say yet, but they've they wanted to pick it up so it'll be outside of like the Headlock universe, but like the sort of genesis was we did a short headlock story that opens with Bigfoot in rehab doing yoga. So
that's how I always envisioned him. That's awesome.
So Randy, how's Wrestle Prom coming, man?
Well,
Wrestle Prom.
I know, I'm excited, man. I want to chaperone that shit. I want to be like the dad standing off the side. Like I want to be like the heel on the show, being like, no, it's like, I'm enforce the 6 feet rule between people.
We had like a
that's one
photo
thing.
booth set up for it too.
Oh, it's amazing idea. It's a great idea. It's gonna be
so fun
that
if we can
happening,
finally do
Randy?
it.
You want to give us
It's
a
gonna
rundown
happen
on
at
that?
Yarmouth eventually. Like we had it scheduled for April 18th originally, so it would have already happened by now. But I think it's gonna be like our first or second show back. Obviously, once shit settles down, like we have no real idea of when events will resume yet. But it's gonna be pretty quick in the next few events that we have.
Yeah, you're gonna run them consecutively just to kind of get that ball rolling, huh?
Yeah, and like I don't want to it's so tough to judge right now. You don't want to come back too early, and I especially don't want to put anybody at risk. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah,
so once we can get a sense of how things are going to work out and when we can schedule like a few events in advance, we'll kind of get some things rolling with that.
Nice.
Now, with that going on, Randy, I mean, I'm kind of curious, even though you're going to get the go-ahead, it's kind of like restaurants. Like, no restaurant is going to do, like, a grand reopening to try and get a ton of people in. It's going to be probably, like, a soft kind of, let's try it out. Now, like, with all this, is this going to change kind of the face of wrestling live, like high-fiving and hugs when people come out and stuff like that?
I think in general people are going to be more conscious about what they do and maybe how many times they wash their hands or just the ways that germs spread. I think a lot of people have more knowledge now than they ever did. I think a lot of people maybe will stray away from the handshakes now, but tough to tell.
It's gonna be the elbow, like
not the limp dead fish handshake.
Oh fuck no, not the limp dead fish.
I hate that.
Although I will say one thing, it doesn't make any in wrestling when I see guys like posting on Facebook being like, I'm not gonna shake hands anymore. I'm like, dude, so you're gonna get in your underwear, sweat your ass off, put me in a headlock, and you're gonna be like, I'm not gonna shake your hand. I'm like, bro, we're gonna be sweating, trading blood. I'm like, if anybody's running course of infection, it's gonna be wrestlers.
Yeah,
there's gonna have to be. But one thing I'm thinking of though is probably I'm thinking of the legality of it, like releases and stuff, because people get sick. It's a lot. I mean, as a promoter, I can't imagine all the things you have to cover now. In this new age we're living in for wrestling.
He's going to be the first one to open their Breaking Bad themed promotion
station.
Yeah.
Do you think that it's going to be one of those things though? Like, I feel like this pandemic is going to create more agoraphobics than ever. People that were already kind of on the fence of being a germaphobe or anything like that, it's just going to send them over the edge. So, are you going to have to open up the idea of always, do you guys live feed your wrestling shows all the time, or is that going to have to be now a new thing because part of your demographic is now not going to want to leave the house?
I don't think it's going to be as drastic as that once kind of everyday life resumes. I think there's also going to be people on the exact other side there saying, fuck this, I'm ready to live my life again. Yeah. So it's going to, there are going to be people split both ways, but I actually think that once independent wrestling comes back, especially, it's going to be in a boom period now more than ever because I think fans, wrestlers, anyone within the business, vendors, anybody who is around it is going to want to be there now more than ever because now you realize, that this could be taken away at any time and how much we do actually appreciate it because it's easy to kind of take that for granted when you do have it all the time and you don't have something like this.
Right. Yeah.
I will say I've been wrestling, basically 17 years straight now with one break of a month for when I dislocated my shoulder. So this is the longest stretch I've had ever. And since I've started wrestling, since I was 17 years old, there's no wrestling, no bumps. I'm actually worried about rolling back into a school and taking a bump for the first time and being like, My buddy Serpentico did that. He put up a little because he's the teacher over at the Dudley Boys School in Orlando, and so he made like a little parody video of him like firing back up, rolling into the ring, hitting the ropes, feeling good, doing a couple burpees, took one bump, and he just laid there and he's like, "Yep, fuck this, I'm out." And he like rolled out and walked out the door. And I'm like, that's everyone in about 3 or 4 months when rings open back up. Working on
their rope bruises again.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was like the opposite for me when Ryan Curry and I did that wrestling bit a couple years ago now.
Yeah.
I hadn't taken a bump in years, and I've always had back problems. And he fucking body slammed me so hard, and it felt good. The next day, I woke up, I was like, man, that's like what I needed. I just needed a friggin' body slam in a wrestling ring. My back feels great.
Small car accident, basically, every time you get a bump in the ring. Right. That's the equivalent.
I just started trying to get into shape, man. I'm on that other side. There's people that are going to come out of this quarantine 100 pounds heavier or 100 pounds lighter.
Quarantine 15, yeah.
Quarantine 15, baby.
I've finally gotten into a workout routine. I hope I'm on that end.
I've been trying to do that myself. I just walk so much now. I walk like 10 miles a day, and it's ridiculous how much I just try to stay busy. That's all. I mean, you can stay fit the only way you can, really.
Yeah.
Problem for me is I walk a lot at my regular job, but then on the days that I'm just writing, the other day I looked down at my Fitbit and I had 850 steps.
Just to the fridge and back.
I gotta get up and walk.
Yeah, right. Well, that's like when you're at a Comic-Con. I think I saw one of your interviews. I mean, I'm going to misquote it, but it was in the thousands of how many steps you had taken.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah.
The day at San Diego, I walked 12 miles. It's my record for walking or whatever, but it was one day at San Diego, 12 miles.
Yep.
How are you, not that there's not a place to go, but if you have your booth and you have all that stuff going, you have kind of your oasis, why are you walking so much? What are you going back and forth doing? Or is it just kind of tracking you in that small space, walking back and forth?
No. I mean, first and foremost, too, I'm a fan, so I want to see everything. I mean, I got so many friends in the business, so I want to see my friends. I want to see what they're doing. I mean, there's so much to see. I mean, I like the refuge. Don't get me wrong. From the sea of humanity, but sometimes you just want to be right out there in the middle of it, and seeing your friends and checking out the art, whatever, playing with. Seeing whatever.
I've personally never been to the San Diego Con. Have any of you guys been besides Mike?
No, I've been to it myself.
I've just heard it's another world.
Yeah, it's crazy.
San Diego and New York are kind of on the same level. New York's more of a Comic-Con, and San Diego's a little more of a trade show now. But there's so much fun and there's so much energy. And I think one of the things when you grow up as a nerd, you don't necessarily. There's not a lot of your own people. And I think definitely for people my age, you know what I mean? When I was younger, it wasn't cool to like wrestling or comics. So finding your people is a thing. And it's not like there's a ton of them. I mean, now it's a little more mainstream, but I mean, for a long time, it wasn't so easy to sort of find your people. So when you go to a show, you're sort of with your tribe, and it's, you know what I mean? I get so energized. I always see people complain about how tired they get at shows, man. Comic-Cons fire me up so hard, because I'm with my friends and I'm with fellow creators, and what they're doing is inspiring me. And then there's people who are trying to break in, and their sort of energy is inspiring. And then you see people you idolize, and just everything just fires me up. It fills my soul. And that's the one thing I miss more than anything is just the energy that stuff gives you. Because I work, like I said, 50, 60 hours a week. I mean, there's times where I go from work to the airport, fly to a show, do the show, fly back from the show, and go from the airport to work. I won't even see my house. You know what I mean? That's my entire summer usually. Mm-hmm. And, when you work in warehousing, summer is your heaviest time. So, I mean, usually from Memorial Day to Labor Day, I'm just, nonstop. And, you got to have something to sort of keep you going. I mean, to sustain you, and, and it's, I mean, cinnamon rolls are nice, but Sometimes you need a little passion too, and that's the one thing I miss more than anything else is just being out amongst. And that's why this was so nice. I mean, I haven't really been in a Comic-Con type setting, and like I'm never in my town, so like I don't know anybody here. Like I have more friends in other cities than I have in the place that I live. So
yeah, same.
It's been really hard to like that part of it is the thing I miss. So
yeah,
this has been good.
Yeah, I think one of like the weirdest things for at least for me and Jay was both working full time, and then 2 times a week I was we were running staff meetings for the con as we were getting closer, and then I'd host a trivia at the cinema club here Thursday night, so it was just like straight out every day of the week, and now it's like, oh, I have nothing to do, I don't get to see anybody. Like it's such a weird change of pace to go from for all of us to go from being straight out to like, okay, what am I gonna do today? Like what can I do?
Yeah, same.
Yeah, I'm trying to soak up, like the appreciation that for a month I've gotten to really bond with my son. My son's 2 years old, and like that's been great. But yeah, like I'm usually, my fiance gives me crap because I'm always doing something. I'm always going somewhere. I'm always doing a band thing. I'm always like spread all over the place. And now I'm just like at home, just like, okay, so yeah. And then like to think that Will and I like to talk about the comic convention type thing. Will and I took over this convention a year and a half, 2 years ago, and we got one under our belt. We signed the contract for this convention that's supposed to happen this weekend in July of 2019. And now like our reschedule is for October 2020. So it's like over a year since we signed our contract to try and make this convention happen. I'm just like so thankful you guys are able to get together and do this because I just miss it so much. And I was so ready for this weekend.
Yeah, me too, man.
I was excited for it.
What was that, Randy?
I said, me too. I was excited for it.
Dude, like really nice, the fact that you guys were going to be there doing like, a continuous storyline type deal for the weekend. I was so excited for that. Al is going to be up here. I got to meet Mike in person. October will be here before we know it.
Yeah, very true. No, I definitely miss, conventions. That's how I met Mike. So that's how him and I first met. So it's like it's weird because I'm usually pretty much every other month. Like I'm doing something with him. Like I was supposed to do, be with you guys for this week, and then had a week off, and then next week I was doing another one that was going to be going on down here in South Beach. So and now I'm not going to have another one. I don't know. I mean, like it could be you guys for all we know. It depends on how everything gets going. Well, I mean, I'm supposed to have 3 in the summer, but they haven't canceled yet. But
which ones are those that have not canceled?
That would be SuperCon, which they moved that one from first week of May to July 4th, and then GalaxyCon in Raleigh, which is the end of July. So that was going to be 2, and those are 2 big ones. Those are huge shows. Those are for FSCW, those are 3,000, 4,000 person shows almost. Like those places packed. So those are like some of the funnest shows I do. Are those
Will showed me all those videos and photos from that event, man. I was just blown away. I mean, I was thinking about what Will and I are trying to do. We brought in 6,000 people in our last event, and we were hoping to hit 8 to 9 in this next one. And then to see, what you and Mike are used to for these conventions. When he showed me Raleigh had like 3 floors and like everything was packed.
Yeah, it was 55,000 people, I think, roughly in and out of the door. Yeah, it was nuts. Like Raleigh is a crazy place.
I remember at one point me and Rudder were up in one of one of the auditorium rooms where wrestling was being held. And Al was just like, hey, I want you to come down here. I'm hanging out with like Pauly Shore and Gilbert, one of the agents. And I'm like, yeah, we'll be right down. Give us a second. And I think like 10 to 15 minutes later, we finally got like through the crowd and back down to like the bottom floor to finally find Al and them.
And that sea of humanity.
Yeah.
I also appreciate, I mean, real quick, Al, inform me how you guys are able to run an event with so many people, but yet Will was able to find you and hang out, and you were able to like step away, because Will and I did this smaller event and we were just like running the whole time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, 15 miles.
Is that because
on Saturday?
Yeah. Like, is that because we were just like micromanaging and you get to a point where everything kind of just runs itself?
Well, yeah. See, so for me, like this would be, I've been doing these since 2014 is when I first started working with Broder. And Broder really, I mean, he does all the legwork. Him and Sandy, his wife, are really the ones they're the stars of the show. So they're what you and Will are doing. So they're straight out busy. But I mean, to be honest, he's got a pretty well-oiled machine now. He knows how his shows run. So I mean, like usually on Saturday and Sundays, like they're pretty calm. Mike will actually just kind of hang out and he'll sit in the back room and talk with agents and bullshit with celebrities or stuff. So I've kind of learned how to, when I could peel away, I could peel away. The wrestling itself, like the cool thing about our wrestling show is it's a wrestling show technically it's a wrestling show because we have a ring, but it's like, you don't really have to like do anything in terms of like, really organizing your match structure, because about 80% of the people who go to Comic-Cons, the ones they go to ours, really aren't wrestling fans. Like they know wrestling, but there's like 20% that are really heavy into it. But what they really want to see when it comes to the wrestling is they just want to see, like, if you got Green Arrow, as long as he uses the bow, like that's really what they want to see. If they see Cap, they want to see the shield. They really don't care about the actual moves. They just want to see like an actual, life embodiment. So the wrestling show is actually super easy. It's just like, hey, you guys know what you're doing. You know what you're doing. And we're working with like some of the best guys in wrestling indies. We bring guys from all over the country, and they're the best of the best. Yeah. And we have Brian Cage as our Bane. We have Caleb Conley as Star-Lord. We have, Statlander. Chris Statlander is our Rogue.
Actually,
is Melina.
Your Star-Lord, Randy, right? There was weren't we at one of Randy's wrestling shows not that long ago?
Yeah, Caleb, man.
Yeah, Caleb was there. That's that Gangrel was also at that one. That's the one where we went down with Randy, let us do the announcement.
Oh, and we announced Mick Foley. Yeah.
Yeah, Caleb wrestled Chris on that show, actually.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah,
I remember seeing him come out, and I'm like, hey, that looks like Star-Lord. So like, immediately like take a photo and I send it to Al. I'm like, hey, is this this guy that plays Star-Lord for you, right? And he's like, yeah, that's Caleb.
Okay.
Yeah, it's funny how many people from FSC, like people who like will do FSCW, like we have so many guys will like do their character stuff, and literally you'll see them start to like implement it into their indie work, and they'll start being like, oh man, like I don't have to I can do more like character based work and like do posing and stuff. Like Danhausen, he was our Green Arrow, and like he just took so many elements of what he used to do for us at FSCW and created the Danhausen character is amazing. It's hilarious. It's one of the funniest things.
I didn't realize that he was out there doing that.
Oh yeah, he was with us for years. He's one of our original crew guys. He was our Green Arrow. He did a bunch of characters for us years ago. No, before he moved out to the Midwest. And then created the Danhausen character.
That's awesome.
Yeah, good dude. I mean, we've had a lot of people, and we have like 75 something wrestlers have gone through our show.
I appreciate too what you guys do, where you were telling me that even when you guys are doing the cosplay kind of thing, you'll get some actual indie wrestlers that pro wrestling. They're all pro wrestlers, but bigger names, whatever, that are like, oh, how can I get in on it? And you're like, what? Well. You have to get a character, and you have to follow that character. Like you're not just gonna jump in here and whatever. Like you gotta actually follow the rules basically.
Yeah, well, like the big thing on the vetting process for that is like our biggest thing is like you actually gotta like this shit. You know what I mean? Like if you gotta actually like comic books, you actually gotta like appreciate the material. Because if you can hire anybody. You could hire any. Like, you can fill any void in wrestling. In wrestling, every single person's replaceable. There's no, one thing that can't be replaced in wrestling. So our biggest thing is like, you got to like the source material you're working with. And we let the people, because we FSCW supplies, they supply all the costumes, all the props, all the gimmicks, like everything, cover all that stuff. So, and they put a lot of money into this. I mean, the costumes aren't just like Kmart costumes. Like, these are actually like custom tailored, like specifically created for pro wrestling to be used in wrestling. So, we're not going to spend, $2,000 on a guy who's just going to go out there like some asshole and be like, oh man, I'm a cool superhero, who's never read a comic in his life or a video game or played a video game. So, and the good thing about wrestling is most of us are all nerds anyways. We all, we dress in spandex and play larger than life characters. Like we're basically walking superheroes regardless. So but that's the cool thing about the mixing of the worlds. Like Mike and I actually do, at every convention we do together, Mike runs the Wrestling and Comics Connection, which is, Mike runs a thing. It's usually me, him, Jerry Lawler, and a couple of the, like Leva, Blue Pants will usually do most of them with us. And we'll usually have like another wrestler or a comic artist, like, whoever's in the area, if whoever's in town.
Ed McGuinness has been on it a bunch with us.
Yeah, Ed McGuinness.
Oh, McGuinness.
If we're keeping it Maine.
I should have texted Ed. I should have texted because you probably would have popped it. You probably would have just like popped it on the Facebook thing. But Ed's a good dude. Yeah. But yeah, we do these because there's so much crossover. It's massive crossover. It's storytelling, and instead of on a page, it's in a ring. I mean, you're storytelling in different ways, and there's a huge element of mixing with that. So it's always that's actually one of my funnest things to do at conventions is that, because it's usually, to be honest, it's Mike explaining his comics and like talking comics, and it's Jerry Lawler telling awesome stories about Memphis where he created Jerry Lawler is literally one of those greatest creative minds of creating characters in wrestling, and it is amazing to listen to that guy talk. Every single time I learn something new.
I believe it. I only met him once, and it was just take a photo, so I didn't really get to talk to him.
He's awesome.
But I'll tell you, he was a super nice dude. He looked at the photo and was like, "No, we can take a better one," and we took a better photo. So that was cool.
My favorite photo experience, I take a lot of pictures for Jerry, and sometimes it's just the two of us at a booth and we don't have a helper or whatever, so I'll take the photos for people. So I don't remember what show I was at, but the guy hands me his phone and he gets over there with Jerry, and I hold up the camera and he gets a text message that says, "Yo, Derek, can I get an 8th?" So he's done. I was like, "Hey, Derek, this guy wants an 8th," and he just grabs the phone and runs away.
That's amazing.
That's awesome. That's great. Yeah. I was gonna say real quick. I just wanted to take a quick moment because I do actually have, if anybody has to go or whatnot, but I'm in no rush. But real quick, one thing I wanted to do is I wanted to make mention because I had a couple questions about wrestling as well, but. I wanted to mention that there's a local brewery, Oro Brewing Company, that they did this all-together beer where there was 615 different breweries in the U.S. that all took the same recipe, and they made their own version of the beer at their breweries. And a portion of it all is going towards industry workers and all that. So I told them that I would bring it up and just tell them about it. So this is the beer that they made. It's called All Together. If anybody's interested in checking it out, I think they have it in New York, Rhode Island, and all that. Definitely not down in Florida, so I apologize. But
I'll check. We got Allagash White down here, so I mean, you'd be surprised at the beer we got in Miami.
What I wanted to do, side note though, is I did want to ask Mike and anybody else, because you guys are keeping up with the wrestling. I've been out of the game a long time with wrestling, and it sucks because Al and I, we're from the Attitude Era. Like, yes, we watched the old school wrestling, but the Attitude Era for me, and that was us as teenagers, whatever, Stone Cold Steve Austin, spraying Kurt Angle with beer and all that. Like, that was when we were watching and freaking out.
That was in my town, man. That happened in
was it really?
Yeah, the original Austin beer thing with the McMahon.
The family.
Yeah. That's amazing. See, I miss that stuff. And then, so I have been out of the game so long. Now listen to this, and I think you guys are going to laugh. The next time that I watched wrestling, like WWF, WWF, WE, was WrestleMania, this last WrestleMania. I was so confused by the John Cena match with that whole video with the puppets and
the Firefly thing?
Firefly Funhouse.
Yeah.
I still don't understand what the hell happened. Like, is that, like, where are we with wrestling right now?
That right there is that's that Firefly Funhouse thing. That's Bray Wyatt's like own little thing. He's kind of like taking the role as like kind of like the new Undertaker-ish kind of character, like a paranormal, like has kind of power. Does he have powers? Doesn't he? So that was like supposed to be like a psychological trip. I mean, I thought it was hilarious. I thought it was super entertaining myself.
I didn't understand it. I'm sitting there watching.
Yeah, no one does. That's the whole thing.
I got the WWE Network free trial so I could watch it. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching this and I'm just like, I'm so confused. I don't understand what's happening. Like, where is wrestling right now? Like,
don't tell me you've never read a Grant Morrison comic. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I guess so. No, I guess not. I'm gonna have to catch up on it. But
no,
it's
no one knows what's going on. You just act like you know what's going on, and you tell everybody it's the greatest thing you ever seen.
Well,
and then you seem super deep.
If it's one of those things though, where we're at, where everybody just accepts it for now as a show. You know, like I remember being told it was Shawn Michaels versus Razor Ramon, a ladder match. I believe it was WrestleMania 11, right? I think it
10.
was 11.
That was 10.
Was it 10?
Yeah, it was 10.
The ladder match was 10.
The ladder match, Razor Ramon, Shawn Michaels. I was watching that. I mean, I was so into it. My sister comes into it, and she just goes, you know, this is fake, right? And I just shattered. And now I feel like it's such a thing that it's like now there's shows where they're watching everybody going through the starter companies and everything. So I don't know. I just come from that age where it was still like, you know, a magician would never reveal the magic. But now it's out there. Everything's out there. It's just...
What you needed to do was when she was watching like Love Actually or something or whatever, you go in and be like, you know, this is fake, right?
Same.
That was my argument in middle school when I'd have some fucking jock asshole be like, oh, you like wrestling? You know that's fake, right? I'd be like, oh, you like fucking action movies? You know that's fake, right?
Right. I'm sure you know Arnold Schwarzenegger's not really a robot.
Except for Stallone. He had a license to kill a lot of people.
Yeah, Stallone is 5'10". Like
he killed all those people in Rambo.
I mean, wrestling's unique. I mean, you got even on this call right here, you know, we got Mike is probably watching a generation before me and you, Jay, and then you have our generation. You have Randy, who's younger than us and you probably grew up really on the heavily, you know, John Cena, Randy Orton era.
Oh yeah.
So I mean,
you all just heard him call me old, right?
Totally different era.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I mean, wrestling itself. I mean, wrestling always changed with the times, and wrestling right now is just in a really, really unique transition phase. Obviously, like, you know, for when I was breaking in, it was, you know, there was not kayfabe, but like you still protected the business. You still did the whole. You shook hands with everyone. You know, yes sir, no sir. You know, it was very strict, very formal to an extent. And then, like, as about 8 or 9 years in, that's where it's like now it's like it's kind of like a super big fraternity thing. Like everyone knows everyone. Everyone's pretty much cool with everybody. It's way more friendly. I'll say that. That's what's nice. I mean, it's way friendlier. Yeah, in the locker room for sure. But the match styles definitely changed a lot. I mean, it's crazy the shit that some guys do nowadays, man. I watch like Danger Kid and Aiden, man. Damn, dude, what those kids do. I text them after their matches too, and I'm always like, "Bro, you okay? Like, you jump off a basketball hoop, man. Like, you still alive? What are you doing?"
Well, dude, it's like Randy? What was that we just had where Scotty? I want to always.
Scotty by God Vegas. But, yeah,
go on.
Yeah, when we posted that video of putting the tooth back in what's his name's mouth.
Oh God!
Mike, have you seen this video?
Crazy fucking just a mishap. Dude, Top Shelf Troy Nelson did a split, and two guys charging at him kind of came head to head, and the back of one dude's head goes into the mouth of the other and popped his tooth out clean. And
then
fucking Ben, apparently a dentist, all of a sudden shoved the entire tooth back in his mouth.
Dude,
Only for Antoine to go to the dentist and have to have them take it out again and put it back in.
That's a hard no.
I actually talked to him
tooth back up in there.
His tooth in for sure. He's all good now, but that was scary.
There is a video We'll have to give you the link, Mike, so you can see it's on Instagram. I know that Ben posted it. But it's hard to watch because I asked Ben, I was like, how did he do that? I've been to the dentist, man. How did you just slide the tooth back in? He was like, his adrenaline was going so much that I was like, we got to do this now.
Yeah,
we got to do it now.
3 minutes after his match, like that tooth was in very quick.
Jesus. I mean, it's hard to listen to, so I can't imagine. It's got to be hard to watch.
It was different. Yeah, it was pretty crazy.
It's been hard for me now, though, like being a parent, because Al and I, you know, like it's the same backyard wrestling. It's kind of like I'm a tattoo artist, so it's like the same with pro wrestling, where it's like nobody wants to admit that they were a backyard wrestler. Nobody wants to admit that they used to tattoo their friends in their house with shitty gear. But it happened. We all were there, you know. We've all been there, and that's like one thing that gets me is like thinking about that extreme side. And now I'm a parent, and I can't even fathom these kids jumping off of their house into a table that's flaming. But that's what we used to do. Al and I, one time, we were in the backyard at my house, and I'm looking through the window. We had a table all set up when my buddy Greg, or our buddy Greg Treadwell, we were going to do a power bomb through a table, and we were like, we're going to set it on fire. So we had this
white gas,
this kind of like gas, propane, liquid, whatever, that it burned, but the second it burned, it went out. And
white gas,
my dad loved
Nick
cops. So we set everything up. We're looking through the window, and I'm like, all right, he's in the kitchen. He's getting a sandwich and chips. He's good. He's going in the living room. He sat down. All right, go. We like lit the table on fire.
And I powerbombed him through it.
Greg through the table, stomped out the fire, and then we're like, look back through the window. He's still watching Cops. All right, we're good. We're good.
Yep. We told him like 4 years later.
I told him about it. Like, 12
I
years later, I told him about it.
I will say though, like the Young Bucks just did a thing where they just released some of their backyard footage for their like 200th episode or whatever, and I'm like, that's bullshit. Ours is so much better. We did so much more. We did so much more crazier shit than they did. And we actually had like fans. Like it wasn't just our buddies. Like we actually had paying fans at our show.
Yeah.
Like shit. Our setup was amazing.
We had cops show up one time to shut it down, and they were like, "Yeah, we had a noise complaint," and then they just hung out and watched.
They stayed and watched the show.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, we had good times then. We did some stupid shit. Oh crap.
For sure. Trying to think. Hey, I got a question for everybody. If we still got time.
Yeah,
I'm good.
What would Mike? I'm gonna ask you. If you were either to jump into pro wrestling right now or back in the 90s, what would be your persona? Would you be like the Dumpster Drosy? Would you be like, like a Steve Austin character? Would you be like a heavy hitter, or would you be kind of like a side character?
I don't think I'd want to be a heavy hitter. I think I'd like to be. It's tough now though, because I mean I'm not a small guy, so I mean I'm bigger than a lot of guys, so it'd be hard. But I would want to do. I mean I'd like to do some comedy stuff. I've got a couple of decent ideas that I know Alex has heard a couple of them. That I'd like to that I always wanted to try to implement. And I'm always trying to talk people into using them and shit. But I would like to. I'd like to be I think I'd like to be an 80s jobber, like now, in this day and age.
Now, like, so what would be, like, would you be the trash guy? Would you be, like, the Brooklyn Brawler?
No, like the Mulkeys or whatever, just like, like a satin jacket and, just like Johnny Powers or whatever, just the sort of the nameless, faceless guys that you would see.
Right.
And just try to have some, I think there's a lot of fun stuff that you could mine with that.
I think there's longevity with characters like that, though. Like, those are kind of the guys that stick around for a while. They just kind of do a character here, but they do a lot of background stuff.
Okay, character. I mean, because you're going to take less bumps. I mean, if your career is predicated on athleticism, then you can't do it anymore. Like Shawn Michaels won't wrestle anymore because he feels he can't compete at the style that he did. You know what I mean? But
right.
Some of these guys can do it forever. I mean, I travel a lot with Jerry, and I watch Jerry. I mean, Jerry wrestles. I mean, he wrestled this year. You know what I mean? Like I watch Jerry wrestle, and he's he's masterful at getting nothing, something out of nothing. And it's it's a real, to me, it's a real craft. Like that's the craft to me, is to be as entertaining as possible and take as little damage to yourself. Like I think if you get to the point where you have to hit each other for real to get a pop, like I feel like that's a cheap, like it's not an earned thing, because you're not, you know what I mean? There's like to me, the art is convincing people that it's real and not just slapping the shit out of each other so you can, take a picture of your chop chest on Facebook and whatnot. You know what I mean? Like, I think if you can get the same reaction without putting yourself through that damage, that's where the craftsmanship comes in. So I think character stuff is a lot easier.
Al's really adopted that, and not to just say specifically one person, but Jake the Snake, he was the guy for. I feel like maybe I'm misspeaking, but Al and I always appreciated Jake the Snake for the psychology, for the fact that he barely took a bump. It was all about that grapple and the push away, and then he'd look, walk around, kind of live it up. I always appreciated that so much. That anybody that could they didn't, like you just said, having to really punch somebody to get a pop. I appreciated the people that could go in there and just their energy was enough to get people going.
People laugh, but Joey Ryan is this, to me, the spiritual successor of Jake the Snake. I mean, Jake built his entire match around a DDT, and Joey builds it around a dick flip. You know what I mean? He doesn't have to do much, and you can just, and still be entertaining, and people are still there for it. I mean, his matches all have a certain psychology to it, and he's not killing himself, and he's probably making more money now than he's ever made in his life. So.
And people want to see it too, continuously.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a reason why, guys like, me, Joey, and a few others, we've been wrestling 15 plus years and we're still able to go. Because, I mean, don't get me wrong, the guys that do the absolute and crazy, the stunt work, unreal. I can't do it. I won't try to do it because I'm going to hurt myself real quick. Yeah. So, but that's insane. But I mean, that style of wrestling has a shelf life. There's a reason why, Chris Colt, the guy who kind of innovated, and that's a super old name from the 80s, that he kind of innovated that crazy style wrestling. He didn't wrestle for more than, 5, 6, 7 years, before the body broke apart. So that's, luckily for me, I fell in love with guys like Jake and Raven and Farouk. Raven was a favorite. I love Farouk and Bradshaw. I like the heavy hitters and the guys that could tell a story in a different way than the guys who Jake, a lot of guys at that time, that's when Jeff Hardy was becoming huge, the Hardy Boys, Edge and Christian, and they were doing things, man, I remember watching that Royal Rumble 2000, which is I remember that's the pay-per-view that made me want to be a pro wrestler. That was when I was this is what I want to do for my life, was watching that pay-per-view. It was
which one was that? That wasn't the TLC
it was
match,
Madison Square Garden. It was Mick Foley. It was Cactus Jack versus Triple H. And it was that was the street fight.
Oh yeah.
I remember watching that match. that match, and I was like, oh, I want to do this for a living. I'm like, this is what I want to do with my life. I'm like, that was the coolest story. The hype video behind that was my favorite thing in the world. So, but yeah, it's you I always say, play smarter, not harder. So, I've been very lucky to get through wrestling. I mean, I feel it. I mean, for sure. But I've always appreciated. I love the thinking man's game of wrestling. That's what I really get behind is trying to to screw with the audience, mess with them, and try to every match I go into, I try to trick the locker room too. If you can fool the boys, then you can fool the fans. That's kind of a goal I go for when I wrestle a lot of matches. My last match literally before the quarantine was against Mike Verna, awesome wrestler out of New York, fantastic guy, super, super good talent. And we were our whole match was literally based off of a punch and a concussion. And we're we wanted to fool the boys in the back. We knew if we looked back and we could see all the guys like kind of poking through the curtain, like watching after like Mike went down to sell his head injury, we're like, oh, we got him, and that was like the whole match was kind of predicated around we're going to sell a head injury, and it was nothing. The match was literally it was a lot of bullshit standing around and him selling, and it actually got a really good reaction because we were trying to tell a different kind of story from. And there are some super talented athletic guys who are going to be on our show, including Joey. Joey was on that show too. So whenever you're on a show with Joey, you're always going to try to compete with trying to, get a different pop because, he's going to get the best pop on the show because the dick's always popular. Doesn't matter what it is. The dick always wins, so it doesn't matter.
That's good. I like that.
Hey, Randy, we got a question from Todd. He's saying, for Randy, what AEW talent sticks out to you as the most deserving for the Limitless stage?
If they're in AEW, I think they've got a pretty good stage on their own. But, we've got a few people who have come through Limitless who have made it to AEW, like a Chris Statlander, Darby Allin, Private Party. They got a ton of talented people, man. One of the best rosters in, I think, all of professional wrestling. They're asking for, maybe someone who hasn't come through Limitless yet. I'm a very big fan of Sammy Guevara. I think he's really kind of coming to his own, especially since being in AEW and really leaning into the fun character stuff that he's presenting now. I'd love to have him in Limitless. And he was actually going to come to Limitless just before he signed his contract with AEW, kind of making him exclusive from independence. But very talented crew of people there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And Randy, you've obviously we've talked about how long Limitless has been going, sold out shows, and just as you mentioned, a lot of talent that's come through Limitless that's been able to step into AEW, NXT, whatnot. But you've also been able to bring in some larger, known wrestling guests. Who's been one of your favorites that you've been able to bring in to work with?
Besides me,
like we were saying earlier, Gangrel's super nice. Gangrel was like a big hit with the people too. Like it's kind of crazy the groundswell of people who will come out for like those Attitude Era names that they grew up with. But I think it's even cooler to see like how much everyone appreciates it after the fact when he can still go and still have a great match. Cody Rhodes is really, really cool as well. And just I usually base my experience off how the fans enjoy the interactions with the talent who come in, because that's a really important part for people, especially when they're paying for meet and greets and whatever the hell else it may be. But I got a ton of positive comments about Cody, ton of positive comments about Tommy Dreamer. We've had Tommy a couple times, one of the best dudes, not only for the locker room, but for the fans.
Dreamer's such a sweetheart.
Super good guy.
Really good dude.
That's the thing I'll say too. Like, people have this image of, wrestling. And I mean, it's funny because I write a book about like, a kid navigating like the seedy underbelly of the wrestling business. But I mean, I've dealt with so many people, even people that people consider carny or whatever. And everybody's been super, super nice to me. And so, a lot of guys are so much nicer than their level of fame would, you know what I mean? Like, you could be kind of a dick because you're, more famous or whatever. But guys have been so unbelievably nice. And I don't know, I could never stress that enough. Like people say sometimes don't meet your heroes or whatever. But I mean, I've met just about everybody in wrestling. And I mean, really, with the exception of like maybe one or two people, I mean, everybody's been wonderful.
Yeah. Very true.
It definitely sucks for circumstance, because I met Jake the Snake under a bad circumstance, and he was one of my favorite wrestlers ever, and he made me feel like I was a piece of shit. And Greg Hammer Valentine, I was very excited to meet him, and he just basically looked like he was having a hard time staying awake. So
this is Greg. No, honestly though, that's just Greg. That's Greg. That's Greg all the time. That's that's actually him. I've worked with Greg a lot. Greg's a good dude, and that's just him. Literally, that's just his speed. Jake is moody. I've met Jake in good times and in bad. So like, yeah, Jake, you probably just caught him on a bad day. He's pretty cool now.
He's a lot better now, which is great to see.
And the other thing I would say is, I mean, having been like sort of caught in sort of people's Twitter beefs and stuff, like I don't think people really understand just how insane like being a top level wrestler is, and just like how you know what I mean? You post a picture of your dinner or something. They'd be like, "Were you coming to WWE?" And how can will you sign my stuff? I mean, like the demands, like especially now. I mean, with social media, like people have so much more access to people, and it's a hard thing to turn off.
Yeah.
Samoa Joe tweeted out my T-shirt, a Headlock shirt that I have. Like it's got like the evolution of a wrestler the day after he debuted on NXT, and so everybody was just sort of replying to it, and that thing went on for days. And I mean, I know nobody's talking to me in this thing, and the shit that people were asking, and just how like crazy it is. Like, I mean, it's a lot. And I mean, I've seen a lot of crazy fan interactions where, you know, so I mean, it's a tough. I think it's tough because it never turns off for wrestlers. You know what I mean? Like,
well, balance in general for a lot. Like, you know, we've been very lucky here in Maine. It's a much more laid back, you know, everybody helping everybody type, you know, feel. And a lot of people are just thankful that we're, you know, doing an event like this up here. But at the same time, you do get those, you know, those crazy guests or crazy fans that like, stalkers or, you know, without going into names. Last year we do a Saturday night. We have an after party at Seasons Restaurant. They give us the whole Down Under Club, DJ, drinks, whatnot for all the guests, free meals, and we had Joey Fatone. And he did a podcast with a group for a little while, and then he came down, and I mean, it was almost like we went from having a great time to, you know, just very laid back to, you know, me and Jay quickly turned into like security to,
bodyguards,
like, you know, try to keep these people off of him. And at one point, the poor guy tries to go into the bathroom, and you just see this girl running and try to follow him into the bathroom, and we're like, okay, no, that's it, time to go.
Yeah.
And you gotta think, like, I mean, that was just that weekend, but like, you know, like, these guys are doing shows every weekend all year long. Like, you know, the people that they run into, the crazy things that happen. You know, we asked, we were talking with Brian O'Halloran, like, how, you know, does it get old having to sit here and say, you know, I'm not even supposed to be here today, like, you know, he's saying that thousands of times throughout the weekend.
Or people are just saying it to him.
They just I think when you embrace the public life, I think that just kind of comes with the territory. You know, social media just makes it more accessible, but you kind of get numb to it too. I mean, my inbox is like stupid full of creepy people that want to send me unsolicited pictures of their genitalia.
You're not going to go to Nebraska and wrestle some guy.
No, I get it constantly, man. Every other day, man. I have like at least 3 or 4 in my inbox and being like, "Sorry, man, I didn't mean to send you a picture of my dick, but
here's
now that you've seen it."
No, but I think the celebrity. I think they just kind of come to terms with it. But I mean, a lot of them too. You know, to kind of talk about Jerry again, because like you said, it's cool the fact that the fans take the time to like want to ask you those questions. Even if you have the same question a million times, it's still that's a unique person that is experiencing you for the first time. So you don't ever want to be that asshole that's like you ruin that person's experience or that image of you. So you always want to take your time with each person and make sure like, you know, you appreciate that they appreciate you. Like that's a privilege, you know? Yeah. You'll get super overzealous fans, but
yeah, sometimes people's expectations, I think, are a little out of whack too.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
I remember, you know, I've seen some of that too, where people kind of expect the world. But one of my favorite things is just, you know, obviously Jerry did the Andy Kaufman thing, and it's very popular. And I mean, I remember being in the green room at a Comic-Con, and it had like its own separate bathroom just for celebrities. And one of the celebrities went into the bathroom to see Jerry, and he comes out and he's asking about Andy Kaufman. So
was that Gilbert? Was that Gilbert?
No.
No, I know Gilbert waited for him outside the bathroom though too to talk to him.
Oh no, this was years ago.
Oh, was
it was at Kansas City, and the guy was just super enthusiastic about it, and it was fun. You know, it was funny and whatever. But even celebrities get to be, you know, are fans of stuff.
It is funny in the back though. How many, like, we'll be sitting in the back with like Kingston and I, because we always sit there and eat lunch together, and we'll sit there with like me, Jerry. You'll see like, you know, I mean, you'll see Magnum TA, Sergeant Slaughter, and you see all of these celebrities, like these super famous people, you know, and then all of a sudden, like, they all start marking out and they see the wrestlers. It's weird. It's like a weird wrestler, like the old time wrestlers, man, have this weird, you know, ability to still draw in like fans, young.
Even Batista, man, he gets bothered all the time in the green room. Like,
well, because Batista still is he was on like the cusp of like where I personally, as a 34-year-old man, kind of fell out of what I was watching back in the Attitude Era and everything. And I feel like Batista just made that cutoff, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It is funny how, like, you'll see, like, William Shatner walk up to Ric Flair and be like, oh, hey, how are you, man? Like, what's going on?
Dude, oh, my God. There was this one time, Chris, who used to run the Comic-Con before us, he was telling us that William Shatner was at a convention with Lou Ferrigno, and Lou Ferrigno was looking over at William Shatner going, well, apparently there was, like, nobody at his table, and he was like, where are all your fans, Will? Where are all your fans? And I guess, like, William Shatner, like, was so upset about it that he, like, left and walked out back, and Lou Ferrigno had to go check on him, basically be like, I didn't mean to, you know, hurt your feelings.
I mean, guys can definitely be sensitive, because some of that too is amidst their earning potential and stuff. I mean, you don't want to put yourself in a position to, I mean, if you're selling people on your star power, I mean, you don't want to look like not a star. I mean, everybody's seen the Virgil picture, and you could literally take that picture of any celebrity at any point, at some point. You know what I mean? But,
some point.
You know what I mean? You can catch a guy sitting at a table with nobody there, and it's a tricky thing to manage, you know.
And all of a sudden you get that on Kane that I was just kind of like, where the fuck is everybody? I thought everybody would be all over this, but I just caught him in like a downtime that nobody was really over there at all. I was gonna ask you guys. I can't remember. It was about, we were just talking about like the old school wrestlers. I lost my train of thought. God damn it! I was right there.
We get this question from Todd.
Oh yeah, Todd asked a question. Let's do it.
So who would win between Vince Russo and Jim Cornette? Oh, Cornette would kick his ass. Cornette's got conviction. If you know Jim, that dude's got conviction. I mean, that guy.
And the racket,
that guy he'll try real hard.
Yeah, he'd claw an eye or something. He'd go right for the eye.
He'd fight dirty, and he would make sure he's going to win what come hell or high water. You'd probably have to kill that dude to get him to stop not wanting to kill a Cornette, in my opinion.
I mean, one of them filed a restraining order against the other one, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it wasn't Cornette that filed the restraining order. So.
It wasn't Jim.
It wasn't Jim.
I could see that though. Cornette would be that guy. Like, I don't want to back into a corner. You know.
Yeah, he's a passionate guy.
So I got one for Al. If you while you're trying to remember what yours was, Jay. So again, like we kind of hit on, you do the independent stuff yourself. You get to travel the world, but then you also get to do stuff as Skeletor. So which one would you say, like, if you had to choose, do you enjoy getting to do more, or be in the ring more as?
Oh, Skeletor! I love Skeletor. It's so much fun. Like I mean, it's such a cool, not wrestling. It's so different. Like it's so much fun because like Skeletor is so in the meme culture, and like when I first started doing it, like he hadn't really gone viral online yet or anything. Like the Geico commercials hadn't come out, so I really didn't know how popular Skeletor was going to be. But man, as soon as I've developed like the promo, and that's really everyone wants to see the promo. I love doing the promos because they're so fun to do. I mean, it's all about the man. Like that thing is amazing. It's my biggest thing I work for is nailing out the promo. Like I like it too because honestly, like it's actually helped me a lot in my regular wrestling too. It's really helped me nail like a better promo tone, take my time, like really build moments, use body language. A lot of guys have kind of forgotten how to do that, like, in promos, because on the indies, you don't get a lot of practice doing that. You can do a lot of this, working on your camera or doing vignettes, but live promo work, like you got to try. Every show I work on, I try to like at least steal a minute or two just to talk, just to hear myself speak, just for the practice of it. So with Skeletor, it's all about the promo. They don't care about anything else. They just want to hear meow.
Yeah, but
that's all they care about.
I was thinking that you wouldn't want to do that because doesn't that involve more work? Don't you have somebody that's like helping you do the voice?
No, I do the voice. At first, when I first started doing it, I didn't do the voice. My buddy Dan was doing it, but once he moved on, I started doing it myself. So the past couple of years, I've been doing all the stuff myself. I mean, the only thing that's a pain is that it's a full body suit and a balaclava with a latex mask over it. So breathing is completely out. So you're blowing up and super hot under that thing. But, you know, it's an easy, it's kind of like with Skeletor, the fans' expectations are I'm a big guy. So like on the shows for FSCW, I'm the biggest guy on the show. So I'm not going to have to do a whole lot of craziness. I basically just work as the Undertaker. It's all throat chops and big boots and a choke slam and a tombstone. So that's literally all I got to do.
I just want to throw this out there that if you ever need anybody to go, you oversized fur coat, I'm in.
Awesome.
And I think like the other thing, like kind of like Al, you were talking about, you know, in the green room, being able to see like some of the celebrities come up to wrestlers. One of the things I got to enjoy the most being down at GalaxyCon was just seeing, you know, introducing some of those celebrities or actors into the fantasy wrestling side.
Oh yeah.
So like our buddy, you know, Josh Petersdorf, you know, Roadhog and Overwatch. You know, not only did color commentary for that, but you know, seeing him get in the ring and win the title, there's so many.
Josh is like one of our most like workhorse guys. I almost broke his ribs at the last show we did together. I think I did. I think I dislocated his rib when I threw him into a dumpster. Every time he works for us, he gets hurt. You got a concussion at one show and broke rib at another.
You guys.
Huh?
That's on him.
Yeah, no, he goes hard. I mean, he commits. Like he's one of those dudes. He's like, just fucking do it, dude. I don't care.
We have an episode where Josh is going to be here. We'll bring you in for that one.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I just talked to him a couple days ago. Actually, I was asking him something. I love Josh. He's a good dude.
Yeah, Josh.
You know, it's about working. It's about working smarter. See, when I had the 24/7 title, I just won it off camera and then had it on my table. And
that's right. You won it for Joey. That's right. You won the DDT one for Japan.
No. But I had the Toxie title for.
Oh yeah, you won the Toxie title too. That's right.
I won it off I won it off camera. Then it was just on my table, and then I lost it in a. I bartered it away for the Cosmic Cube. So no bumps, no broken ribs. You know, still got my TV time.
It could be like Barry Bostwick, who just comes in and does a time warp and.
Oh man, that was awesome.
The title that way, so.
we had Sam at the last one. We had Flash Gordon. Oh my god, that was so cool.
Oh,
with
that was such a
we
good
had
spot.
We had Leon Scott doing Ming the Merciless, and it was fantastic. And then you had Sam Jones come out to the Flash Gordon music, and man, to hear like a few thousand people just like completely be like, because you get every time when we do like our celebrity guest appearances, because like since all of our characters are like not really the people, like it's Caleb playing Star-Lord. It's not, it's obviously not the actor. Right. So like but when they notice it like halfway, they always do it whenever you have like a celebrity show up. And so when they see like Sam Jones come out, they're like, you hear Flash Gordon music, and they're like, oh, we're going to see a Flash Gordon ripoff come out there. And then they're like, all of a sudden they're like, Sam's a big dude. He's a big bitch. Yeah. He's like 6'4", 275. And he's in great shape for his age. He's a big dude. All of a sudden, they're like, you can see it in the crowd. You can that energy at pop. It's like, oh holy shit, like, and then everyone stands immediately, and they go ballistic because it's like, oh, we're actually seeing Flash Gordon come out to fight Ming the Merciless. That was pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you can see that the energy is fun. Like the guest appearance is the best part.
Well, you had the Cobra Kai guys too, right?
Yeah, we had Cobra Kai. I did a thing with Martin Cove. He Coach Kreese. He came out with Skeletor to coach him on how to win a match and sweep the leg would actually work.
Sweep the leg, yeah.
My favorite one was I get to work with actually Alan Oppenheimer, who does.
I was just gonna say who's
the actual voice of Skeletor. That's by far my coolest thing. Is I've done a couple things with him where we did a Skeletor versus Skeletor, spot, and that was awesome.
That video.
I was literally
not
like,
only the voice of Skeletor, he's also the voice of Falcor from the Neverending Story.
Yep, he does Bluey Smurf too from the Smurfs. He was in the original Westworld movie, like the original of the HBO, but he's the original Doctor from Westworld that Jeffrey Wright plays. That was Alan Oppenheimer.
I think he also did a couple other voices in Neverending Story. He might have done Rockbiter or somebody else in that.
He's doing Mossman in the new Master of the Universe that Kevin Smith is doing.
Oh, so, because Mark Hamill was doing Skeletor, but he still wanted to be part of it. Will and I were talking about, we were like, apparently it was more like because of his age, he's doing a side character in case it goes very well and he can't continue. Yeah, he's I mean, Alan's spry, man. Like we did a panel, him and I together, where we did the same thing we used to do, where I would go out in the Skeletor uniform, and it was a Q&A with fans, like actual Skeletor fans. It was for Alan himself, and they wanted me to go out there, and Alan would answer as in the Skeletor voice, and I would field all the questions and point them out, and I would just act it out as Alan. So that was pretty cool. That was pretty cool to actually be real Skeletor for a minute. And then Alan comes out and, surprises all the fans. It was pretty cool. Oh, hell yeah.
That was awesome.
Yeah, Alan's definitely one of those who I'd love to get up here for the con. And,
we tried, man. We tried.
You talked to Neri, right? You talked to Neri.
Yeah, me and Neri were trying to work on it, but I think we were going to try to have him for, what would have been this year, this weekend. But he had some health stuff at the time. So it was kind of holding off. And the year before, he was just so booked.
He's a busy guy.
Else.
He's a busy guy.
Yeah, he was basically at their limit of how many shows he was, was wanting to do for the year.
A lot of those old voice actors like Peter Cullen and him, and they're so busy now. Like people just really want to see the 80s voice actors now, before obviously, time does its thing. But man, they're always so slammed and popular, which is good to see, though.
What's his name? Frank Welker.
Yep.
He's another big one, right?
Oh yeah, he was super. He was in Richmond. He was crazy popular too.
We saw
the biggest lines
last year. It was Frank and Paul together, and that was awesome.
Yeah.
I feel like anytime I say that was awesome, I feel like Chris Farley from SNL.
Awesome.
That was awesome. You remember that?
Yeah, I do.
Will, what else we got, man, before we can, we've been talking like almost 2 hours here.
Yeah.
Holy shit, yeah. It's awesome.
Hour and 40 minutes. We're doing pretty good. I guess I think, like, if I had, one more question, kind of like a group question for you guys, who would be, Mike, somebody to collaborate with, Al, somebody to wrestle, and Randy, somebody to book. Who would be like the, I guess what I'm trying to say, like the most sought after person you would like to be able to collaborate with in some form?
I mean, in terms of like a wrestler story, like if I could get a story from a wrestler, I mean, I think it would probably have to be The Rock.
I knew you were going to say
pretty
that.
close. I can't really.
You're working on The Rock, right?
We had a little bit of a Twitter exchange there, but it hasn't bore any fruit yet. Artistically, like I'm the biggest fan of Eduardo Riso, who does 100 Bullets. Like, if I get, I mean, that's definitely a dream collaboration. Or Art Adams, to me, is like the GOAT superhero artist. So those would definitely be my sort of dream collabs.
I think for people who are like realistic to actually use on an event, Chris Hero, who recently was released from the WWE, someone who I'd love to work with again. One of my favorite wrestlers as a kid, and just seeing how many people up here really enjoyed. We had him up very early in the stages of Limitless Wrestling, our third ever show. So he's someone I'd like to get up again. And Yoshihiro Tajiri is another one who I've been trying to set up a U.S. loop with at some point. I'd love to get him up here because I don't think he'd ever fucking come to Maine. You know what I mean? I think it'd just be a really, really fun pull for people to see.
Yeah, I don't think he's been in Maine since like the old WWE show, like from 2002, 2003. Yeah. I think that's the last time I saw him. Like, and that was like on a crazy loop. That was like the first time I ever saw Raven live was on the same show.
Oh, hell yeah.
For me, wrestling wise, I've been lucky enough to pretty much wrestle everyone. The only person I haven't wrestled yet that I really want to wrestle, it's because he's one of my childhood heroes, is Jericho. Jericho would be the guy I really would love to work with. Just because that was really my first, like, I was a super fan of WCW. I watched WCW more. Jay was like really into the Attitude Era. I was a Nitro guy. I loved, Goldberg and Sting and DDP and Raven and
Nitro
Jericho.
was my commercials from Raw.
See, that was the opposite for me. I was a Nitro guy, and I'd switch over and watch commercials. But yeah, Jericho, like ever since I remember the very first thing that made me fall in love with him was when he was listing off all the wrestling holds on paper, and like they cut the commercial break, and he's like on wrestling hold like 1004 or whatever. And ever since then, I've been a huge fan. But I mean, talk about a guy that can reinvent himself more than anybody in wrestling and stay relevant.
It's unbelievable.
50
Not
years
just
old.
relevant, but I mean, he's probably the most important wrestler in the country right now.
No kidding. I mean, he is pumping out still incredible matches, working at a pace with guys half his age. I mean, and
releasing albums.
Yeah, and he's still releasing albums, and he's touring, and he's still like partying like a rock star. Like that guy goes hard nonstop. So to actually get in the ring with him, like if I get to hang out with him and like have beers with him, he's a super cool guy. But to actually work with him, that's to me is Like I would absolutely love to work with him.
What do you think he's doing right now? Like, is he going nuts right now?
He's not. Wait, you think he's not watching this?
yeah.
No, I mean I can tell you, man, like the legendary party story, like Flair, I've seen Flair go, Flair could party. All these guys who are legendary. Jericho still goes full bore. He's the last man standing at the bar every time. Like, and that's him. Like that's not a work.
See, Flair has set himself up for failure because I now feel like anytime I would ever hang out with Flair, he's 2 steps from a heart attack. Like that's how I would feel.
You can still go.
He's gonna outlive us all, man. I'm telling you.
You can still go. I just saw him in November, and he.
Did you really?
Kid. Yeah, he's hey kid, you still drinking?
Yep.
Oh, sure. He's like, all right, I'll see you out there.
Yeah. You're supposed to see him at the bars, man.
We asked his manager because Will and I just kind of were like, I know he's not going to want to come to our event, but let's just ask. And his manager was like, yeah, he's not going to come to your event. Like, we're too small. We're too small of an event.
I had a silent drinking contest with Ric Flair where I tried to outdrink him without telling him that we were having a drinking contest, and he still outdrank me. And this was 2 years ago. I mean, it was probably like a month. It was a month before he went in the club
by yourself.
I mean, he can still put him away.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think awesome. So when me and Rudder went down to GalaxyCon, we were, I was texting Alan. I was like, yeah, I want to, the 2 big people I want to be able to try to meet are Flair and Foley, and Flair was only there the day that we flew in, and he's like, honestly, like if he's not at the convention, he's probably just gonna be over at the bar drinking all night. So there's a good chance you'll catch him there.
If Flair likes. I mean, that's Flair's downtime, man. You buy him a nice. He'll find the nice steakhouse in town. He'll get himself a super nice dinner, and then he rolls up into a sports bar and he wants to watch a game and just sit at the bar and drink. And he's a cool dude. I mean, he's
he very much is Ric Flair. I mean, there's no.
He's not playing the character. That's him. He is as real as it gets.
Well, and I mean, like, think about it though. I mean, that guy has been Ric Flair as like a pro wrestler longer than he hasn't been Ric Flair as a pro wrestler.
1971, right? Something like that.
Yeah. So I mean, like, that's all he knows is being that guy.
Oh yeah, no, that's him. That's Ric
Flair. Why would you be somebody else if you could get away with it?
If I could be Ric Flair, I would be Ric Flair.
He was at our booth at New York Comic Con. He was just signing, and somebody walked by, and like there's people crowd all around the booth, and somebody just yells, "I go, hey Ric Flair, I wish you were my dad." And he didn't even look up. He just goes, "Who knows, kid? Maybe I am." didn't even miss a beat.
That's amazing.
I can see that for sure. Like, I don't know. Like, I live in such a small world, and to think about even being somebody like that, just absolutely blows my mind. And I got to say, like, you and Al are the closest to that I would ever be. But, like, I don't know. It's just like, I'm still living in this world where I'm thinking of the Roddy Piper versus Gold Dust match where they used the footage from
OJ trial.
Simpson friggin'
down,
WrestleMania,
the Hollywood backlot brawl. Love that match.
Al, I wanted to ask you, if you were a pro wrestler, what persona would you be?
If I was a pro wrestler, I would be honestly, I would be like I would be kind of like I really love the brawlers, man. I love, like, Farouk is one guy I seriously always liked, and he was kind of like, for me, it'd be like a Farouk style. Like, I love that, just straight badass, like that big, just crazy strong, just beat the shit out of anybody. You know, Ron Simmons is cool ass dude and legitimately like one of the scariest guys you'll ever get in the ring because of how powerful he is. And I wish I could, I wish I was like 6'6", 300 pounds like he was in his prime. That would be me. Like, I would love to be like that kind of wrestler where it's just like you walk into a room and everyone's like, whoa, like that dude. Like, and that's what people would say about Simmons. Simmons had that reputation. Let me ask you this, though.
Like,
you'd never try
anything that you wish you had been. What do you think that, like, I mean, you're in it. You're doing it. You're traveling. You're meeting these people. You were the champion in Las Vegas for like 2 years. Like, what, at this point with everything that you've done, though, where's the next step? Like, where do you think that what's the next part? What have you not done right?
Well, right now at this point,
right, but you know what I mean.
No, for sure. I mean, I've been close. This is like I've been almost signed twice already. For WWE, I've been really close. I was actually I'm the very first independent wrestler to work for NXT. It was me and QT Marshall. That was back when WWE didn't allow indie guys to like do shows on the FCW shows or NXT when they were building a facility. And we were the first guys to like break that ground to bridge the gap between like, hey, indie guys aren't just like shitty wrestlers. Like, we're actually pretty good at what we're doing. So I was actually in good regards with guys like John Laurinaitis and Bill DeMott and those guys. So like they liked me a lot, and I was doing all the loops with them. But then, they all got let go, and then, the new Canyon's in charge now. So it was like starting all over again with them. I mean, for me, it's just plugging away and just trying to develop something that will catch the eye. I'm actually working on something right now with Robbie Rodriguez. He is a Marvel Comics writer. He's created Spider-Gwen. And him and I are actually working on a new character pitch that I'll be sending to AEW. Nice. So for a full-time deal, for hopefully a full-time deal. I've done a couple things with them so far and have some pretty good rapport. Like, I have all my best friends are there, and that's really where I want to work personally. Yeah, is AEW. Yeah, like Tony's the coolest boss in the world. To be with them full-time is the dream for me personally. I think they have the best creative schedule and wrestling schedule. I mean, you really can't beat it. And like I said, like all my buddies, my friends, literally all my best friends are on that show. So that's where I want to be.
Dude, and I want that for you. Like that's like where the hard part is. Like, we're all here with our screens. We're all talking to each other. But like you and I've been friends with you forever. I love you like a brother. So like I want that for you. So I just am like, I always get curious. I'm like, where are we right now? Like, get your ass in there. Like, where are we?
Does it? I mean, like, I've gotten it from plenty of guys. But honestly, like, there's only so many spots, and you really got to have something to, pull on TV. I mean, you can be a great wrestler, but I mean, if you got to have something that, it's gonna have longevity. Like, that's gonna be a character that can go on forever and ever. That can make ad revenue. And like, I work in acting, so I understand the television business. It's competitive. There's only so many spots available.
Where's the difference, and not to like lump you into some, but where's the difference between the headbangers and somebody like yourself getting into the business? Because if you think about
timing.
it,
it's timing and luck. I mean, it's timing and luck. It's just, you got to be in the right place at the right time. Vince was literally looking for guys who did an alternative Marilyn Manson style gimmick. And it just so happened that Chaz and Glenn, and Chaz was like 22 years old. I mean, he was super young when he got picked up, super young. And Glenn was like 28, 29. And they just literally happened to have the right gimmick at a time when Vince was looking for it. And they were working for Cornette. So Cornette was like, who was working for both Vince and running Smoky Mountain. They were like, hey, man, we need you. Like, you're perfect. You're signed at 22, you know? So, like a lot of it's timing and place. I mean, I'm out of the guys I broke in with, I'm like last man standing from my generation of guys. There's no one left who, like, really my age that, you know, that is still doing it, you know? There's only a handful of guys.
Yeah, for sure. Well, what else you got?
I think basically we kind of just close it with, finishing back up with Mike. So we got to talk about Headlock Comics for a little bit. But for people that are watching or will watch, the stream after, if they wanted to get their hands on Headlock Comics, what is the best way for them to be able to do that?
So all of my social media is at Headlocked Comic, one word. And right now I've been trying to do my part to, keep people entertained during the apocalypse. So if anybody, if you follow me on Twitter, if you retweet my pinned tweet and send me a DM, I'll send you a free five chapters of Headlocked, like a trade. Awesome. Basically, I'll send you a digital trade for free. So
get on that.
Just trying to, it's good. There's a story in it that I co-created with Shane Helms. There's one with RVD and one with Christopher Daniels. And it's a fun book. It's right at the beginning of, what we're doing now. And I think people like it. Jerry Lawler painted the cover. So Jill Thompson did some art for it. The interiors are done by a Samoan wrestler from New Zealand named Micheal Molapola. So, I mean, we have all the art except for Jill's is basically done by actual wrestlers. So
nice. Love it. Get on that, everybody. Go get it.
Actually, I know Rudder picked up a few when we were down at GalaxyCon, and as soon as he got back on the plane, that was basically his rated material the whole way home. He was so excited for him. So once we told him that Mike was coming up, I think he got almost more excited that Mike was coming than some of the guests that we were bringing.
I'm excited to come because, I mean, you got Dana. Is he rescheduled yet too for October?
So I'm still working on that with Joanna. He was because originally we were going to do September weekend, and we ran into issues with some of the guests, Kevin Eastman not being able to make it. But the Clerks trio was available for October. Eastman was available for October. So she was checking on that. I haven't heard back. I messaged her again the other day. So still waiting to see, but I'm hoping Dana will still be able to make it out.
I hope so.
He said he had a pretty open schedule, and he was hilarious down at GalaxyCon.
He's awesome.
He's a troublemaker, though.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah.
No, it's gonna be fun because I'm looking forward to the Bangor show just because it's like Kingston here, it'll be me, like a lot of guys who I eat bullshit and hang out with, and they get to show my other friends from my other part of my life to my friends, my other part, my first
hometown. Yeah.
It's gonna be pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think Al, you and Mike, doing the circuit can attest, because you guys have worked with a number of the guests that we have coming. I think one of the things that me and Jay are lucky to have is it seems like almost every guest we bring up, they're just so down to earth, so appreciative to be here, just love talking with their fans, and like you were saying, being able to just hang out with Dana, hang out with Brian, another very personal person. Josh was that way. Lou Temple when we had him up. Cooper Andrews, another one.
Cooper's cool.
Yeah, all those guys are great.
Yeah, good.
We're gonna have Cooper on another episode for sure.
Oh, Cooper's a good dude too. Yeah. We saw him. Something last month.
Walking Dead themed ones. We're gonna have Cooper and Mosley, who was
nice.
One of the Michonne's pets. We had him up here for one of the halfway of shows we did before. So
nice.
He was a great guy too.
I played blackjack with Moses and Fichet. It was the first time I ever played blackjack, so that was good.
And you bought a lot of drinks.
For the Shay, like not for anybody else.
All right, well, I think that's all I've got. I mean, we've almost hit 2 hours. I don't want to keep everybody much longer, so
appreciate all you guys' time for sure. Like, thank you
of
guys.
Of course.
Oh, super fun, guys. Super fun.
Yeah, I love it.
Thank you guys all for taking time to be part of this. Al's kind of stepped in a few times this week and done random test videos with us and just hung out. And Mike, it's almost a year since the last time I got to see you. So I'm really happy you were able to join in on this. And Randy can contest the wrestling community here in the state is it's just keeps growing and growing. So to be able to have you come up and be a part of this and try to help do a small part on our end to help with the independent wrestling and wrestling as a whole fandom, to have you it means a lot to everybody here. So
definitely
very cool.
Absolutely.
And I'm excited.
Me too.
Very excited.
So,
very looking forward to having you guys here.
Yeah, so I think I'm good, Jay. If you have anything else.
I'm good, man. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We look very much forward to having you guys along when we get this all rescheduled and everything. And I hope that it's going to, stay for the date that we picked. So let's go for that. October 2nd through the 4th. We're all going to be there.
Absolutely. All right. Awesome. So Jay and I will be back Saturday for the next episode. We've got Bob Raymond, who has done our amazing logo for the web stream. All of our posters, prints, anything, all of our badges, everything's done through Bob, who's now living out in Utah. We've got a good friend, Rob Thibodeau, another amazing artist from Canada. And we're going to be joined by Paul Eaton from Galactic Comics. So 8 p.m. Saturday. Hope to see a bunch of you guys there. Thank you guys all for tuning in, and thank you guys all for joining us tonight.
Awesome.
Thank you
guys.
Take care, everybody. Be safe out there.
Yeah, don't get sick. Wash your ass.
See you guys.